in the last arguably 200 years as a result. Yeah, so I'm not sure what we got cut off there, but basically,
right.
the metaphor of stopping grounding the plane, changing the engine. I mean, that metaphor runs out at a certain point because human society will always be flowing on. There is no stop button. That just gives you a sense of the scale of the challenge and the complexity of it when there's so much of society relies on things that we probably shouldn't be relying on. Now, what is probably maybe more interesting is to see the speed at which certain things have changed in the recent past and to use those as some kinds of examples. Now, let's say, for example, what we wanted to do was to change people's behavior towards maybe driving less in cities or walking more or some behavior pattern around automobiles and so forth. There's been a debate around that for 50 years, and that has really not gone very far. You have some people that like walking, you have sometimes cities pedestrianizing city centers, and there's some movement there, but it's not really a grand debate. It's not really a big piece of social change at the international global scale. Look at what happens when you suddenly have mobile phones that have a big screen. You know, the smartphone revolution itself has gone from nowhere in 2007 to being the way we live our lives in 2012. And there was not a single policymaker or advocacy guy or big noisy campaign that said we all need mobile phones that have screens, touch screens. No one ever said that. But now that we've got them, suddenly there's just this vast explosion of apps and tools and communities around sharing cars or using cars differently or kind of using a taxi in a kind of intelligent way. And so change happens, and what is actually more interesting than screaming at the world and the community of policymakers, why aren't you doing something, is actually look at the pressure points, look at the transition points and see the dynamics of transition and see what it is that makes those things happen. Now, I think what we've got with pervasive mobile devices, to use the technical term, and the internet and some other things like cloud computing is not just a platform of those things in themselves to enable a lot of change. There's just no question that we will be able to, and we are changing the way that we live constructively at a vast scale rapidly using these kinds of, using the platforms that they represent. But they are also a model and an inspiration for how other industries can refit what they do. And so to put it this way, we've just changed the engines in mid-flight in lifestyle and telecommunications, and no one even noticed. They were still sipping their champagne on the plane. No one had any sense that we went from, the telephone concept of ringing a building to contact somebody to directly being in touch with them wherever they are in whatever means you like. No one noticed in the shift from that model to the static model to the mobile model that anything was going on. It just seems like that's pretty cool, let's get on with it. Well, there's lots of ways in which sustainability can be the same thing. If what sustainability adds up to is wasting resources and damaging nature, how hard can it be to get away from that, right? This is not rocket science. We just have economies that bind in and social patterns that normalize an inefficient use of resources, so let's get out of that. If sustainability was me telling you, or you telling me, or somebody telling everybody, hey, look, it's blue today, not yellow, or you've got to all be, doing this at this time of day, or whatever. If there was a structure of demands that had no value or logic to them, you could make a good case that it probably would never happen. If what you're actually asking people to do is waste less stuff and not trash nature, and that's the alpha and omega of it in the scheme of things, why is that so hard? I mean, for real, why is that so hard? And so what I find inspiring is, you can't just grab strategies for change out of the air, but what you can do is look at what's happened, and the mobile revolution has been almost universally beneficial in the rich countries, in the poor countries, everywhere. The overall model that represents is also an interesting set of lessons for other industries.